Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hope. My name is Tammy Lynn Connors. This is my YouTube channel and podcast, helping other people evolve. Today, I have Jacob on. Hi, Jacob. How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Great. And you are in Wisconsin, you said?
Yep, Wisconsin. It's starting to warm up nice here. Supposed to be in the 70s today, so we'll take it.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah. I know. I just moved from Michigan to Texas, so I can relate to your
You're familiar with the weather, yeah.
for sure, for sure. So I met Jacob on Instagram. I came across him and have been following him. And Jacob and I have been playing like Zoom tag, if you want to call it that, for quite a while now. But I'm
Mm.
super excited to hear his story of hope. Jacob is in sobriety, and so we're going to find out a little bit more about that in a little bit. And so, for those of you that have never tuned into Hope before, or those of you that need a reminder, what my mission and vision is just to help people that feel like they're alone in their struggles. I feel like so many people in this world are at home and they're going through something and they feel like they're the only person going through this. And how are they going to get through that? And throughout my podcast, I've interviewed so many people that have went through so many different struggles, from addiction to death to grief to depression, that maybe somebody else has heard their story and knows that, yes, today I can get out of bed because Jacob got out of bed, Tammy got out of bed, Lou got out of bed, whatever it is. And that's just what my hope is with this. So today we're going to talk some sobriety, which I'm excited about. I'm sure Jacob's seen, I've been sober over 21 years now. So it's been a
Yep,
journey of hope for sure, and been a great one. So
absolutely.
Jacob, let's just go. Let's, with, like I said, sitting in a coffee shop having a conversation about Jacob
Yeah.
and what Jacob's been through and how Jacob's getting through.
Well, first off, I want to just mention like your page, the Podcasters of Hope. That's really was my theme. Like in last year was kind of the theme of my profile. Was really to hope is what kind of got me through. Um, and there's a lot of power in that. And I want to touch on that a little bit. But um, for me, um, it was a progressive thing. Drinking was something I could moderate just fine, and then slowly as the years went on, how much you drink increased, and then you start experimenting with just maybe drinking a little earlier for whether it be something, maybe you're on vacation or something like that, and then you say, oh, that feels pretty good, like I kind of like that, and so then you're looking for more opportunities to do that,
Uh-huh.
and it's kind of a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
And you sometimes you think like for like if it was a stressful thing at work, stressful day at work or something, and you'd use it for that. Sometimes I would bring work home, and like I could work on maybe work on a work evaluation or something like that, and have a drink, and I felt like I was a little bit more free with my what I was wanting to say, and so then I thought I was actually improving, I was doing better, so I was giving myself all these reasons why drinking was, maybe it was this is like such a secret to like all this positive stuff, and but but then the more the use continues, the more detrimental it becomes, and the more you start to like become dependent on it. And it's like, looking for any excuse, you start thinking about it all the time. It's controlling your thoughts. You're waiting for your shift to work to get off, so that you can get home, and maybe there's just one little thing that, oh man, I need a drink when I get home. It's been a day, and it's really like, now it's like it wasn't that big of a deal, but you're looking for an excuse for it.
Right. Exactly.
um and then it was in 2020 when COVID hit, that I think was, I was definitely progressing in the wrong direction prior to that, but that kind of like catapulted me, like, because there wasn't, you're home so much and there wasn't a lot to do, and you're a little nervous about what's going on in the world. And at first, is this going to kill everybody, type of thing. You didn't really know. And
Right.
so
Right.
um and so then it kind of took your mind off it to drink more. and sometimes it was you weren't eating, you would start not eating very healthy either. I started gaining quite a bit of weight, and I was just, we were essential. I work at a hardware store, lumber yard, and we were essential workers. So we were that in the hardware industry, we were busier than ever, um, so we also had a skeleton crew because we also had some people that weren't comfortable working, and so
Mhm.
you're working and, you know, trying to keep things going, and and so it's very stressful days. And so, it just kind of progressed from there. And um and so that's kind of how my drinking progressed. I think is kind of the starting point.
Yeah, I just want to talk about that a little bit because people don't realize that it can be a progression like that, right? Like you said. So I started drinking at a very young age, but my alcoholism, to say, didn't really kick in until, geez, I was 27 years old, something like that, 28. But what happened was the same thing, like just drinking here, doing this, oh, we're going here, we're drinking. Oh, this is a good reason to drink. And there was always reasons, like you said, everywhere I went, there was, and alcohol is completely legal. So it's not anything that anybody's like, yeah, that's you're drinking, that's not, you're not supposed to do that, right? And
Mhm.
so my father passed away when he was 34 years old from alcoholism. So he was very young, and I was
Okay.
13. And I wrote poems and things about, like, I'm not going to be that. This is what alcohol will do to you. You're going to end up either dead, insane, or in prison, which is all facts. And but as time went on, like you said, the drinking continued and continued, and then it progressed and it progressed to the point that it was no longer, I had no control anymore. It was me looking in the mirror, actually doing a shot of Listerine and saying, "Oh my God, look at you. You're your father that you said you weren't going to be." But at that point, I didn't even know how to quit at that point. So I can totally relate. And I hope people realize that, like, it's not like you wake up today and you're an alcoholic. It's a progression and it continues. And we will find every reason to have a drink anywhere we go, whatever we're doing. Like you said, you come home from work and you're like, "Whoa, that was a day. I'm going to have a drink." Or, "Geez, my favorite show's on. I'm going to have a drink with that." You always had a reason to have that drink with you.
Oh
So,
yeah, yeah. I gotta mow the lawn. I'm gonna watch the Packers, or there's no why would anybody question that,
right.
and it wasn't. I think that that's, as you kind of shared your experience too. It's like, um, there's, I think they've kind of gotten, if you've noticed, instead of alcoholic, they call it alcohol use disorder, and I think that's a more appropriate term, really. They kind of changed that terminology, um and when you think about that, because that has a lot of different variations, and so I've been trying to use that terminology, like when I talk, I had an alcohol use disorder problem, because some people, like I've heard, they take their first drink and they're hooked instantly and they can't stop, and it was from day one, and that can be a lot of people's experiences. And I've listened to that side of the story, where you just can't it's just part of your makeup, and that's just who you are, and that's how it affects you. And I'm not discrediting that, but I think that it's important that, like, you and I share that story of the progression thing, because some people will, in the early stages, like I never really was worried about alcohol being dangerous or anything when I was drinking it,
Right.
in a normal way. I was actually, for a lot of times, it's like, well, why wouldn't you want to drink? Why wouldn't you want to drink alcohol? Like, why are the people choosing not to? Like, and so, on my page, sometimes people will make comments about wanting to, you know, they don't really understand what I'm trying to put out there. And that's okay, because I get it. I didn't understand it either. So I usually just kind of accept that, I don't judge people for drinking, because I was the same way. I used to wonder why they didn't want to drink either. But I think it's important that if you are going to drink, that you understand the dangers of it,
Yes.
And I didn't really realize, um, just because, I for whatever reason, you just kind of become oblivious to it. I don't have a great excuse for it, because everyone, you'd think everyone would know alcohol is bad for you, but I didn't realize how dangerous it was.
Right.
And then it got to the point in 2023 where um, I was having some serious medical issues. And I was eventually diagnosed with liver cirrhosis, and I was fighting for my life. And 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 it was, even when I went into the doctor, I didn't really think of it as maybe that it was something with alcohol.
Hmm.
But as soon as they started asking the questions, and like every doctor, every nurse I saw starts asking me how much I'm drinking and asking these questions, I'm like, oh man, this isn't, this is like, I screwed up. Like what did I just do to myself? And you start to um, really think, man, this was not worth it. Like, and it's a real desperate situation, I guess, you know.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. So one thing that you said, like you said, and I think the biggest thing with alcohol is it's just like I said, in the world it's normal. Like people everywhere you go, like every event, everything like that. It's just they're selling alcohol. There's advertisements, everything. You know what I mean? So that's why I think it fits so well into society because it's just accepted. We'll just say that.
Yeah.
And not everybody's going to have a problem with alcohol either. You know, there's those people that I look at sometimes. I still, so now in my recovery, which has been many years, I can still go out dancing in bars. I bartend. Because I don't have a problem with it. And if I ever did, I in a situation that I felt uncomfortable, I would leave immediately. But sometimes I'll see people leave this much in a beer bottle or this much of a drink, and I'm like, what is the matter with them? Like,
Yeah.
that's not normal. You
I
know what I
know.
mean? But that is normal, you know? Somebody
Yeah.
that can go out and have one drink with their friends and they're out for 5 hours and they're like, yeah, I had one. And I'm like, I'd have had 20 and plus probably snuck and had another one. But
Right.
so I think
Right.
that that's the thing of it. But I just, so with cirrhosis of the liver, my father had cirrhosis of the liver also. And towards during my drinking career, as I called it, that 7 year like span of really drinking, I did have pancreatitis, acute pancreatitis 3 times, and my liver was also starting to fail. So maybe you could tell us a little bit, like what were your signs that that you were having liver trouble, or what made you go to the health
Right.
professionals?
Yeah. Well, it was something, there was some symptoms that were starting to show up probably the year before, towards the, end of the year. I was noticing some things like I couldn't sleep very well, and then I'd wake up and my legs would be really like tight, and like and they were so discomfortable. Like there was this tingling and like this feeling in my legs that I'd have to get up. And I remember walking around and just trying to stretch my legs out just so that I could get enough that I could, get back to sleep. And so I'm thinking, well, something's not right. And I actually went to the doctor for that, and they actually were going to test me for rheumatoid arthritis. They said, we think you might have rheumatoid arthritis. And I'm like, well, that's really, like, you think that's what it is? Like, okay, I don't know much
Right,
about it. I've never heard, it sounds to me, it sounded like something like, you get when you're a lot older. I
right,
just in my head, and I don't, I'm not saying that people my age couldn't get that, but it's just that at first it was kind of surprising. So, and I kind of like, I kind of feel like that's when I think about that. Um, some of my symptoms, like there was a friend of mine, his wife had told him, and he told me later that when they found out about this, that when I was talking about my symptoms of with my legs and that tingling and all this, that the things I was experiencing, she actually had thought, it could be liver. She was aware of some of those symptoms, but you know and she kind of kicked herself for not saying anything. Well, it wasn't her responsibility to do that, but in my thought process, why, when I go to the doctor about it, you know that's something too I think is important that we need to start doing as a medical community, is maybe doing some of these tests. You want to have some, okay, you have this symptom, I'm going to do a liver panel test,
right,
and just
right.
we're gonna do some blood work, we're gonna check it. And that would at least indicate, because you can't, that would at least indicate to the doctor that, hey, even if maybe you do have rheumatoid arthritis, but also we see some other things here with your liver enzymes that are
Mhm.
concerning. And have you been drink are you how much you've been drinking, and have those frank conversations,
Right.
and to talk about the seriousness of it. And I feel like in some regards, the fact that I had went to the doctor for that, it got missed,
Mhm.
that would have been an opportunity for that, maybe an eye opener, say, hey, if you don't do something, you might be going into liver failure soon.
Right. Right.
And I'm not trying to blame the doctor or anything. I'm just
Right.
saying it's a learning experience that we maybe could improve on.
Mhm. For sure.
And but then it became where it was like I was starting to get um my my stomach was getting real like full feeling, and I was thinking I was just like gas or bloated. I just felt
Right.
bloated or whatever. I didn't really know what was going on. And I started to call into sick to work, and that wasn't like me. I don't miss work unless I'm really sick. um and so that was a little something. Something's not right. Even you know I work with my dad, and I'd have to go home, and they were starting to say, well, something's not right, because he's seems to be like not feeling real good.
Right.
And then just one day it was like my wife or the kids might have patted my belly and teased me about my stomach or something, like kids do. And then
Mhm.
my wife kind of looked, and she's like, yeah, your stomach kind of looks a little, something looks a little funny about. And I'm like, and then I was a little self-conscious, like, well, I'm working on trying to lose a few pounds, you know, and and so anyways, but then the next day it was like, man, my stomach is like hard, like this is weird, and I'm
Mm.
not feeling real good. So then I called my dad in, and I just said, something doesn't seem right here. And I kind of was, and he kind of looked at me, and kind of felt my stomach, and he didn't know for sure what it was either, but he goes, I think you need to go to the doctor. I think you need to make an appointment today, get it checked out right away, because something's not right there. And so I did just like he said. And yeah, I got in there, and the doctor, it was not my normal doctor, but I could see as soon as he saw me and he started, I mean, those they see that kind of stuff. They know what they're seeing. And he had this look, the look on his face. I can still remember. He just had this serious look, and it was like
Mm.
and they started asking me about, do you drink? How much do you drink? And stuff like that. And I kind of try to downplay that because
Right.
I'm embarrassed by it, or don't want to, admit it. And then turns out he's like, well, we need to get you to the ER, because I believe your stomach is filling with fluids, and we need to get this drained off here as soon as possible. And I was supposed to go on a business trip like in 3 or 4 days, and I was like, well, I have this business trip I'm going on Sunday. And he's like, I think you're going to need to cancel that, because you don't want to leave right now. And I'm thinking,
Mhm.
okay, now I know it's serious.
Right. Right. Jeez.
So yeah, it was scary. It was definitely a scary moment. And yeah, I don't, that's why I want to share it with others, because I don't want other people to have to go through that, and find out so like suddenly. Like I was here, I'm at work, and then later that afternoon I'm in ER, and I was well enough to go to work, but I wasn't feeling great. And then next thing I know, I'm fighting for my life. And then that's when the jaundice, they started looking at my eyes, and they started to see, and I got real jaundice, and my bilirubin was through the roof.
Mm.
And it was looking pretty bleak,
Yeah.
for a while there. So
Wow. Well, what a blessing that you're here, you know.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so did they did they put you on a liver transplant list or anything like that, or is your liver like better?
Yeah, actually, that was originally the thought, was a liver transplant was going to be what I was going to need. And but that really wasn't an option for me. And so because of that, we had to look at other options. And so functional medicine was really what helped me. And then I would say, you know, um, all the doctors, there's a lot of good things that they were able to do to try to help me. They did the periodontist to try to get rid of the fluids. They tried different things, different treatments and different steroids, and got me, check for a possible, liver transplant, stuff like that. And so they tried their best, but they basically can't run out of options, And so there was a doctor at the last day that I was in UW. Oh, I don't want to name any names, I guess, but I was at a certain hospital, and I was as a certain doctor that had actually recommended functional medicine, um, and she had asked, like, what's your next steps, and we really weren't sure, like,
Right.
where do we go? And she said, well, I've heard good results from, some people have had these ALA infusions, which is alpha lipoic acid, and these infusions of this. And she says that there's this doctor that she knew of, a doctor like down by New Mexico or something like that, who had done these and had had great results with it. And so she might check into that. Wrote a book about it, and so she gave my wife. My wife said it was like an answer to her prayers, because she started looking into that, and she believed a lot in functional medicine and stuff like that, but wasn't sure if that was the answer. So to hear the doctor kind of knowing that we didn't have any other options was
Right.
was willing to say that, because sometimes in those fields
No,
really
they don't.
they don't really say stuff about that. But and I think that's important too, that okay, somebody in my shoes that is without hope, like, give them something, even if it's not guaranteed, like,
Right.
well, at least it gave us something to try. and
Right.
and and I would say, then another functional medicine. So there's two functional medicine doctors I worked with. The other one, and this kind of goes back to what we talked about your Hope podcast, is that first appointment with that other doctor in functional medicine. He's like, I can't guarantee anything, but I think we're going to give it our best shot, and I think we can help you. And getting that hope is so
Right.
powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And that's so awesome. And that you said that, like, getting that hope. Now, the other thing is that now you, thank God you were someone that said, okay, you knew you had to stop drinking then, right? Like,
yep.
and not everybody, unfortunately, not everybody does that. I had a good friend of mine that she was actually a nurse, and she had cirrhosis of the liver, and she had quit drinking, and she was on the liver transplant list, and she started drinking again. And of course, they can't do a liver transplant then. And then she passed away shortly after that, and it was just heartbreaking to me because eh, and the thing is that we have to, at the end of the day, it's all about a choice that we're going to make, and so to see you sitting here and knowing that you chose life instead of your alcohol, basically, because that's what you
Mhm.
did, and just to know that is awesome, and to have those doctors, like you said, like your wife said, like, those are answered prayers right there. Because I mean, you had to feel like when they're telling you, well, we can't do this, we can't do this, we can't do this. I mean, that had to feel a little bit of hopelessness, right?
Oh yeah, it was. There was a time I remember asking one of the doctors, "Is there any way that my liver could heal on its own?" Like, and he didn't say anything, and he just kind of like rubbed my shoulder or back, and I was just like,
Oh,
his silence basically said, And they had me meet with palliative care, which is basically to make sure you're comfortable in your last, and
oh,
so you're starting to, like, man, like, they're really setting the stage here for what should be expecting. And the thing that you sometimes need, and I've found this. I've shared things that have worked for me, because I have had a lot of people reach out to me. And if you reach out to me and I tell you, give you, this is what worked for me. Sometimes, people are a little hesitant to try this or look into it. And sometimes the expense is an issue, because it's not usually care that's covered by insurance. But if you, any way that you can get some help with that from someone or somehow, I mean, your life is worth something, and it's worth more than money. And um but you have to, but I understand what I'm trying to get at is, when I was at that point where I was pretty down and out. I was about as depressed as I never really been depressed. I was really depressed because I thought
Mhm.
I was gonna die. Um, and and then when one of the doctors um that was hard to get into, we found out was willing to see me. My wife was all excited. She's like, "This doctor's willing to see you. You know, he wants to be with you." And I just was like, another doctor, like, what's the point? You know, and so
Mhm.
I can get that where some people might feel that way. And so that's why you need a loved one or someone to like say, because she goes, well, you're going anyways, or she made the phone call and it forced me to, said, okay, so I went. And from day one, that's when when I had hope, and all of a sudden I felt like, hey, there's a chance for me.
Right.
And I just needed that hope. I needed like to feel like this worth fighting for again,
Mhm.
and that made all the difference. And so I would just say, from my experience, if you have a loved one that's suffering with this condition and you care about them, like, you might have to push them a little bit. Like,
Mhm.
you might have to drive them to the appointment and say, you're going to this appointment. And
Right.
because they may not have the feeling that they can do it or it's worth it.
Right.
And so you have to be the solid mind, and that can go a long way, I guess.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And that's so true because, and that is a lot of times, right? You have to have that person or those people in your life that I know that I say this on my podcast. I'm a big believer in God, and I know that He put the right people in my life years before I quit drinking for the point when I finally decided to stop before I died. And that was it. Like you said, you're laying there. I mean, I was the same. I was hopeless. I felt worthless, all of this. And I was a single mom. And my son was that I got fired from my job, and which I had never gotten fired from a job. I was a very functioning alcoholic. So I worked and I drank at work because I managed a sports bar. But when I got fired and my bosses wouldn't hire me back, I was like looking at myself. I weighed 85 pounds at that time, Jacob. Same thing, like jaundice coming, all of this. And I was like, my son's going to find me like we found my dad. And that was my, like, I have to do something now or I'm dying. And,
Mm.
sometimes it is that realization. And fortunately, you, me, were ones that said, okay, I am worth living, and I've seen people that are just so broken that they just don't realize that their life is worth so much. And I hope that maybe somebody hearing this today knows that your life is worth that much. You are worth that much. We're all put on this earth for a purpose and a reason, and if we're waking up, there's still a purpose and a reason. And I wholeheartedly believe that. And I hope that someone knows that, yeah, there you were on death's bed, and you could have made that choice that it's just like, I'm done, I'm giving up. But thankfully you had your wife, you had someone
Hmm.
in your life to say that. And for people out there that don't feel like they have anyone, we're here, we are here, just
Right.
out. We're here to not like coddle you and all of that, but to help you
Hmm.
get there. I'm not going to be like continually like, okay, you have to do it, but I'm always here, and I'm never judgmental. And if you fall off, like people fall off in recovery, it's okay. You could get back up again and start over again. I've been blessed that I've never went back, thank God. But I know people have, and I know I can't imagine that feeling of having to come back again, but it's okay, and I think that that's something that people need to hear too. So,
It is, and I think um, the fact that you're sharing like how your situation was when you went back to work and your condition and how you were feeling. I mean, I think right now a lot of our posts, what we're sharing is like hope and like how great sobriety is, because it has changed our lives for the
right,
better. But it wasn't always rainbows and butterflies. Like we had those feelings too, so we can relate to those. So like, yeah, definitely feel very strongly that that it's important that we um kind of share that too,
yeah,
because and I like that you said, not non-judgmental, because I think that's something that that is important. I try to remind myself as much as I, have learned about alcohol and understand its dangers and understand that it's, you know, what it really is I basically despise it now, but at the same time, I'm not judgmental with anyone who does drink,
Right.
and I'm not, and I have to sometimes remind myself that because I was once like that, you know,
Mhm.
and so I try to keep keep that reminder in front of me so that I'm not ever judging anyone. And
Right.
then especially if when people are really struggling with it,
Right.
there's a lot of times where people just look down. Well, they brought that on themselves and they did all, that could have been me, like
Right.
that could have been my outcome. And so, you're judging them, you're judging me too. So like, let's try to help them, because
Yeah.
they just need some help. They're lost and they're stuck in this addiction. They've it's become something they never wanted it to be. And so that's a perspective that you and I and any other ones who have recovered can help with if we share it.
Right.
We don't share it, then we're just kind of keeping a gift to ourselves
Yeah.
that we could help someone, I think.
Yeah, when you just said, I was just thinking to myself, when you said gift, I was thinking gift because that's what it is. It's a gift. And if we keep it, then, I mean, gifts are meant to be opened, right? And I
Mhm.
feel like God gave me a gift to live. And that's why I'm out here sharing and showing that, yes, you can still be happy. You can still live a good life. But I also do share, like, life happens. Like you said, our lives, just because we got sober doesn't mean that life isn't still life in, right? It doesn't mean that we're not
Yep.
dealing with things, whether it's, I've lost a lot of people throughout my sobriety, that have passed away that were very close people to me, but I've never had to go back out and drink again
Right.
because I use the tools that I've been given to keep my sanity and keep going, and knowing that I don't have to pick up a drink in order to get through that sadness or that grief or anything like that. And I think that's something that people need to know too. They're like, I've had people say to me, like, smoking, even, like, I was like, you quit smoking for 15 years. Why'd you start? Well, my neighbor, I was having a bad day and they were smoking a cigarette and I was all anxious. So I decided to smoke a cigarette. And now I'm back to being completely addicted to cigarettes again. And I'm like,
Yeah.
but you have to remember that that's a choice that we get to make. And to pick up that cigarette or pick up that drink in a month, you're going to be back to where you were when you stopped. And what did that help you? It
Mm.
didn't, and
Right.
so to me, excuses that's a rough one for me.
Mhm.
So, but
Yeah.
but I just believe that wholeheartedly. Once you decide and you really know that maybe it is because we were on death's door, that we realize that we might not get that second chance,
Mhm.
and I think that I've heard that before, like somebody says my next drink could be my death, and it's true. And
Yeah.
I believe that, and I'm not ready to go yet. I feel like I'm going to live till I'm 100.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. No,
I
that's
laugh. I tell my friends, I'm
yeah.
like, I don't want God to do what He did to Betty White and Queen Elizabeth. Let me live to 100. Don't do 99.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Sure.
So how long have you been sober then, Jacob?
It was 2 years in March.
Oh,
So and it's kind of interesting, despite being as sick as I was. I don't know about your experience with it, but because you become so used to having, you went from drinking, now it became a life-threatening situation for me. But I kept thinking, maybe I can get well enough that I can drink in moderation, and I can have a glass of wine with my wife, or I can, just have a beer with the at the pack watching the game or something, and I can just have that one or two maybe tops, And I was in my head, I'm still thinking that, that was kind of my goal, was to get, if I could get healthy enough. And and some of the doctors I saw, as they saw I was healing, they said, that may be a possibility, but they did emphasize, the concern would be that it turns back into, you know higher consumption. And so I still was still holding on hope. And I think that's something, when people are new trying sobriety, like, if you really got to commit to it, um and they, you got to take it one day at a time so you don't overwhelm yourself. But at the same time, if you can just stick it out once I got to like month 6 or 7, there was something clicked. Like I think my brain had healed or something, and my mental focus. And I'm at work, and there's just these times I can't really explain them, where I just felt so powerful and so like alert and like focused. And it was like his next level, like, wow, this is amazing. I haven't felt this good. I don't remember the last time I felt this good. Like, and so I was like, and I started seeing that I was appreciating the little moments, and I'm starting to, I started talking to another sober friend about that. And they recommended the book by Annie Grace, this Naked Mind. I don't know if you've read that.
Oh,
Excellent book. And when I read that book, it basically sealed the deal for me. And the Annie will say in her, when she writes it, that some of her friends won't even read the book because they know they probably will quit drinking alcohol if they read it. But
yeah,
it's because she tells the truth about it. And how your subconscious, and why things you think you like the taste of alcohol, but you really don't. And it's really your body's like natural reaction to like if you drink spoiled milk, your body says, get this out of here. And you right away react to it. Well, what happens when you first try like a shot of you know whiskey or something like that? You're like, at first you're like, it burns, it's terrible, it tastes
yeah,
awful. And so that's like your body saying like, what is this? We don't want, this is not good, don't drink it. you know
right,
um
yeah,
so you have to force it down in a sense. And then you start, and then for me, you mix it with a lot of sugary cocktails,
right,
and that also furthers the damage to your liver. and
yeah,
and so but yeah, so that's the one thing about it, is it was probably 6 or 7 months. That's when
yeah,
I really committed to sobriety. And it
mhm,
was like I started, um you know and then I started seeing all these positive results. And
yeah,
then it was February of last year is when I started my sober page, just kind of just have a place. I didn't really anticipate it to be um grow as it did, but I saw it was maybe helping people. So it became, it's helped me to be more open about
mhm,
it.
yeah.
When
And
and it helps you learn how to talk about it and not be ashamed of it.
that's it right there because of the stigma of it, right? So to not be ashamed of it, and that's the thing, and I think that your page is awesome. I'm so glad I came across it. Tell everybody what that page is again.
It's feel sober good. It's feel underscore sober underscore good. And then it just was thinking, well, everybody wants to feel good. Well, feel sober good.
Right.
So that's kind of my, is that you can feel sober good, by that's really my theme of
Yeah.
my page. But it's also a lot related to hope. And I'm starting to share more about liver, um
Mhm.
with liver health, and also how alcohol affects your liver, because
Yeah.
that's definitely something that sometimes people, we're seeing more and more of that, where
Yeah.
people are younger people, and it's
Mhm.
concerning. And so if we help one person, like, um I don't know about you, but like, if I would have had someone that I could have reached out to. And I was actually talking to a good friend of mine here just the other day, and he was talking about someone that he was kind of helping, that was having a problem with alcohol. And and he told me what he was saying to him, and he had kind of talked to me because of my experience. And I was listening to him. I said, man, I should have called you when I was good. And he's yeah, you should have, but sometimes you're afraid that your friends will judge you or you whatever. But if you have someone, like, reach out to somebody you trust, and that, because they're not going to just judge you. Like, a lot of times they're like, hey, like, they care about you. If you need help, like, let's get you help. Let's you
Mhm.
can fix this. And I
Right.
kind of wished I had that. I wished I maybe took the initiative that I needed to, because maybe I did have it and I didn't utilize it.
Right. Right. But then again, I always say that what we've been through is who we are today for that reason. We all go through the different things.
Mhm.
I just watched, I don't know if it was a reel or something, and it was a gentleman talking about he said from ages 35 to 45, something about the half moon on your thumb. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, I've heard of that only through another sober influencer, um, Scott.
It might have been who I saw the reel from.
Yeah, it's yeah, he talks about that a lot. That was something that happened in with him and his wife. If you start losing the half moon of your thumb or something like that was a symptom. I guess I never looked at that,
Me,
at the time, so I don't know.
me either. I was going to Google it and check it out before I mentioned it, but I just thought about that when you said that. And so now, you probably get your liver checked, your numbers now.
Yeah, I just did it. Just for the record, it's Scott Frieda.
Okay. Yeah.
That's the influencer that I know he's spoke about the half moon a lot.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, what did you ask me about?
Oh, about after you get your liver counts.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I just got them checked again here, did some blood work in January, and my liver enzymes are still slightly elevated, but they're almost normal. And I mean, my bilirubin has come down. I mean, from where if you look at where I was at, like in April, because I do a comparison, it's like drastic,
Yeah.
like. And so I checked my most recent MELD score would not even I wouldn't be considered for a liver transplant because my liver health is not at a point where it's it's obviously healing.
Yeah.
And hopefully I'm hoping it will continue to heal as I continue to try to do things like, I try to eat a healthy diet.
Yeah.
No drinking alcohol obviously is going to help tremendously.
Sure.
And supplements, I take a lot of vitamin supplements, and exercise. I do exercise, three times a week for sure. So all those things, if I have contributed towards my healing. And those ALA infusions were huge in the early going,
Yeah.
and that's something that if somebody wants more information about, if they have that, private DM me or whatever, and I can give you some information about that.
Awesome. Awesome. Now, one more question before we wrap this up. Do
Yep.
you go to any type of AA or anything like that, Jacob?
No, I haven't. I've done some online ones.
Yeah.
I was invited as like a guest for some of those, and
Uh-huh.
and I definitely have an interest in it. I didn't have to. Um, in my case, it was because it was a life-threatening situation, and I had good support from my family and friends
Uh-huh.
during that time. I was able to um, get to a point where now I'm like you. I really don't. I can be around it and it doesn't affect me.
Right.
You doesn't mean you don't get a craving or something, but you can remove yourself from that and avoid that. I feel strong enough to, in most cases, just have to, get a, get out, leave the situation if I need to,
Right.
and
Right.
but otherwise, um, I haven't, but I definitely see a lot of benefit. I think a lot of people have benefited from it, and I could see, for me, the sober community has been kind of my
Yeah.
group, my AA group
For
through
sure.
through Instagram, because a lot of these other influencers that like yourself and others that shared with, and I follow the posts, and we make comments on each other's posts and stuff like that at times, or just even a like, a heart or something, makes you feel like, you have the support. We're all kind of, we post this to help other people, but it's also helping us, and it
Right.
and it helps us to know like there's other people out there that we're all kind of like doing this together, like, and it kind of helps keep us all accountable, I think.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I agree 100%. I always just like to ask that question. I myself don't go to AA or anything either. I did my first 6 weeks of sobriety, and I say I can always thank my boy's dad for three things: my two boys and knowing about AA.
Sure.
I'll give him that much credit. But
There you go.
anyway, and I did
Yeah.
that my first 6 weeks only because, like you said, we're so constantly we had that drink with us all the time. And when I quit, well, one thing, I lost my job, so I didn't have a job, and I also had to give up my best friend, which was vodka. That was my best friend in the world. I mean, when I drank, I drank. If my eyes were open, I was drinking. So when I had to occupy my time. So for 6 weeks, I mean, I went to 3 AA meetings a day. But after that point, I knew that I had to live my life too, and I couldn't, because I see, and I'm big on AA. I think it's great, but I never want to be dependent on that, if
Mhm.
that makes any sense to you.
Yeah.
And having this sobriety community, I just love it. I found so many new friends through sobriety, on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook, and people just willing to share. And then
Mhm.
with you willing to share and me willing to share, it's giving somebody else that hope, and then they start to share. I've had people reach out to me that I've known for years that said, "Hey, you show me that I can be happy sober, and I've been sober for 6 months now." And I'm like, "I didn't even know you had a problem." Right?
Yeah.
It
I
shows,
yeah.
but it's those
I
reaching out and stuff. And so, I always tell people, whatever it is that you need to do to stay sober, do it.
Yep.
It doesn't mean that just because someone says you have to go to AA, you don't have to go to AA or a group like that. You don't have to do anything. All you have to do is stay sober for yourself. And
Yep.
I believe wholeheartedly that people need to know that, because I have a friend of mine. She's been sober, geez, I don't know, maybe 40 years now. And I reached out to her for somebody wanted a sponsor, and I'm like, I can help you, but to go through this principles and the steps of AA, I'm just not equipped. And I'm
Mhm.
honest about that. So I
Mhm.
reached out to this girl, and she said to me, and it really hurt me. She said, "Oh, I forgot, you don't need AA." And I was like, that's not what I was saying. I do. I need the community, and I need
Mhm.
all of this, but that was one of those judgy things. So I don't ever want anybody to think that you have to have that in order to stay sober. So that's why I asked you that question, because
Mhm.
I think people need to know that, that
Yeah.
you don't have to do that. It's, to me, it's my higher power that's kept me sober. And,
Yep.
so
Yeah, I think that's, different tools, the gym we talked about, having hobbies, keeping yourself busy, spirituality has really improved for me, because I see all that God did to help me through all this. So I want to, show my appreciation back and help any way um, that I can, and for his will. So
yeah,
it's you have to find stuff, and it's important that you, no matter what, don't go through this alone. Like, you got to have a support system of something. um and it was kind of, for me, like Instagram, there's a lot of negative perception about social media and Instagram and time wasting and stuff, and there's rightfully so. But that's one area where, it's, for me, it's found, there's not everyone can relate to the struggles that you go through.
right.
And so that's what I found in the sober community, and following these influencers, because see them share their story, and I see that I'm not alone. I wasn't the only one that dealt with this, and that
Mhm.
that really helps you to feel like you're, that it's just very helpful in the whole process. And
Yeah.
sometimes it helps you to see how bad of a situation you were in yourself, and you're maybe in denial, but it helps you come to that acceptance of it. And so, yeah, I think it's a real positive thing.
Yeah, awesome. I think so too. So, well, Jacob, I really appreciate you jumping on here with me today.
Yeah.
Like I said, we've been trying to do this for a while now, and it finally worked out. And I'm just happy that you're here. I'm happy that you're sober. What a blessing to have you in that sober community. And you are a light to people, just so you know. I love watching your posts, and just, you make me smile, and just know that we can get through, and that we're here for you. That everybody knows that I'm here for you, you're here for me, and we're out here for the world that's looking for hope. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in sobriety, just hope in life,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So is there any last little things that you want to say to anyone?
No, I just would say, if you are struggling, you like get just don't be afraid to ask for help, because you're meant for so much more. And the sobriety, it seems like it might be like a life sentence to not have alcohol, but you'll find that it's like complete freedom. It's like it's hard to explain, but there's a reason why we share it, why all these sober people are so like moved to want to share this, because, like, it doesn't mean you don't have bad days, but it's just it's incredible, and it's like you're in an alternate universe. Like I feel like I feel like a completely different person. I've aged 10 years younger. I got my goals in front of me. I'm motivated. And so there hasn't been any regrets at all. So um, you know, it's worth it. So go for it, and get help. Don't get to the point where me and Tammy got to, where it got life threatening,
Right.
because we're fortunate and we're grateful. I know, from your words, we're both grateful about it.
100%.
But not everyone is so fortunate, and so we don't want people to get to that point. And so
Right.
if you can avoid getting to that point, um you know it's worth it. You got a lot of life to live. A lot of people love you, need you. So
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much, Jacob. And everybody, I thank you so much for tuning into Hope YouTube channel, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible. Go in there, like it, share it, love it, whatever you want to do. Just let's get this hope out there so people know that they don't struggle alone. And somebody today hopefully heard Jacob's story and they can get out of bed today and just go get checked if you have something going on that you think might be caused from alcohol or something else. But keep your health in check because it's very important. I want to add one thing with that because in February I did lose my sister. She passed away suddenly at 54, and she was an active addiction, but um, didn't know what, and I found out through an autopsy that, well, we knew that she had COPD, but on top of that, she had pneumonia, but she also had diabetes, which we didn't know. And so when you're having symptoms of different things, go get checked. She was having some where she was passing out here and there, and she had told me that, and we thought it was her blood pressure. Well, it was a killer disease of diabetes. So that, like you said, with your legs, but make sure that you're your own advocate too, because
mhm.
sometimes they'll just send you home and say, oh, it's this, and whatever you're feeling. So I just wanted to add that. That just came into my brain because we were talking about that. But so,
Yeah,
make sure you're taking care of yourself, make sure you're checking on yourself, check on your friends. I always say check on those strong friends. Shoot Jacob a message once in a while, like, hey, just checking in on you, because sometimes we do have bad days too. But
mhm.
and it feels like God always has that way of just being like, hey, and I get a message from someone, I'm like, how did they know? So, anyways,
Sure.
Jacob, once again, I appreciate you getting on here, and I hope you have a fabulous day.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Tammy.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.